Welcome to Everyday Musicality, the podcast in which we discuss all things related to Gordon's music learning theory and how it can help unlock the inner musician that lives inside of all of us. I'm your host, Heather Shouldice, music educator and faculty member for the Gordon Institute for Music Learning. In this episode, I talk about the importance of improvisation and developing the readiness to be a successful improviser. Hello and welcome to the Everyday Musicality podcast. I hope that your new year is off to a good start and that 2021 brings you good health and much happiness. I'm excited to bring you our first giveaway of 2021 from sponsor GIA Publications, which I'll tell you about later in the episode. Also, I'm thrilled to announce a new sponsor, the Gordon Institute for Music Learning. GIML is an organization for those who are interested in music learning theory, with members across the country and around the world. I serve on the board of GIML as immediate past president, and for the past year and a half, we've been working on a strategic planning process in which we've been re-envisioning the endeavors of the organization and advancing what we offer to our members. So in order to help bring MLT to more music educators, the organization has generously offered to sponsor this podcast, and I am so grateful. Next month, I'm planning on having my second guest on the podcast, the current GIML president, Cindy Taggart, so you won't want to miss that. In today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of improvisation. I believe the ability to create and improvise their own music is one of the most important, if not the most important, musical skills we can help our students develop. This is because creating and improvising give our students power, the power to express their own musical thoughts, to make their own music without needing a teacher or director to tell them how the music should go. So many students go through school music programs and never make their own music. They sing or play music that someone else has composed or music the teacher has taught them, and then when they graduate or when they stop participating in music, they're left with minimal independent musical skills that can empower them to make music on their own. This would be like if a child could only speak words and sentences that they had been previously taught, but couldn't have and express their own unique thoughts through language. When I think of it that way, it makes everything seem kind of pointless. We learn to speak a language so that we can communicate, so that we can interact with others and communicate our own thoughts through language. I believe one of our primary goals in music education is to teach our students to communicate musically, to think in musical sounds or to audiate music, and to have the skills with their voice or an instrument to bring those inner musical thoughts out into the world. When students can create and improvise, they realize that music is so much more than just notes on a page or sounds that someone else has instructed them to make. Musical ideas can come from inside of them, and they realize they are musical creators. However, just like we don't come out of the womb thinking in language, we don't come out of the womb audiating music. And I think this is why many people, children and adults alike, struggle with improvisation. If we haven't developed a rich audiation vocabulary to audiate tonality, meter, and function, we will struggle to have and express musical thoughts that make sense. I think this is why many teachers attempt to teach improvisation through techniques like the blues scale. They use notation and theory as a crutch to make up for what students lack in audiation. Students may be able to cognitively choose pitches from the scale and press down the keys on their instruments to make those pitches sound, but this often lacks forethought. They may have no idea how the music is going to sound until it comes out of their instrument. According to Gordon, quote, "To create and improvise, one must have something to say. Unless students have learned in discrimination to audiate vocabularies of tonal patterns and rhythm patterns in various tonalities and meters, they will not possess necessary foundation in audiation to know what they might want to say musically as they are creating and improvising." That's from page 137 of the 2012 edition of Learning Sequences in Music. So again, in order to create and improvise, students have to have something to say. They have to be audiating so that they can have musical thoughts to express. If students lack this readiness, they will only be able to engage in random musical exploration. For this reason, the importance of facilitating audiation development by providing students with an abundance of rich discrimination learning opportunities can't be overemphasized. Side note, if you're new to the term discrimination learning, you may want to listen back to episode 9, in which I give an overview of Gordon's skill learning sequence, the main theoretical framework that's at the heart of MLT. So before we ask students to create and improvise, we can set them up for success by helping them gain readiness for creating and improvising, by facilitating the development of their musical listening, speaking, and audiating vocabularies. So what specific musical skills can we help students develop that will equip them to create and improvise? The two primary things are to help them audiate musical context so that they can make sense of the music they're hearing, and to help them develop a functional vocabulary of tonal patterns and rhythm patterns with which to create. So again, context and vocabulary. So rhythmically, we can help students develop audiation of meter, which involves the ability to sense, move to, and perform multiple layers of beat simultaneously. In MLT, we call these layers of beat macrobeat and microbeat. If students can audiate and move to the macrobeat and microbeat, they will have a better sense of meter. So we can have students practice moving to, chanting, or playing the macrobeat and microbeat in a variety of ways, and to experience simultaneous macrobeat and microbeat, to move to both or to hear both macrobeat and microbeat at the same time. This will enhance audiation of meter. In addition to helping students audiate meter, we can help students develop a vocabulary of familiar rhythm patterns through echoing, first without rhythm syllables and later with rhythm syllables. This rhythm pattern vocabulary will provide students with a set of rhythmic building blocks with which they will be able to improvise rhythmically later on. On the tonal side, we can help students develop audiation of tonality, which involves the ability to perceive the tonal context of music. If students can perceive music's tonal context, they will be able to create and improvise more effectively within that context. The first step is to help students begin to audiate tonal center, because this is the most basic sense of tonal context. Tonal center could be referred to as the first scale degree, the home tone, or in MLT, we typically call it the resting tone. If one is able to audiate the resting tone of a given musical context, they will be better able to sing in tune within that tonal context, and they'll have a better perception of melodic and harmonic direction, all of which will better enable them to create and improvise in a way that makes tonal sense. So we can model the resting tone of the repertoire we're performing and have students practice audiating and performing the resting tone. In addition to helping students audiate tonal context, we can help them develop a vocabulary of familiar tonal patterns through echoing, first without tonal solfege and later with tonal solfege. This will provide students with a set of tonal building blocks with which they will be able to improvise tonally later on. Finally, in addition to helping students audiate and perform the resting tone, we can expose them to simple harmonic progressions to familiar melodies, which can be done through the singing of chord roots, also known as bass lines. Some people also call these chord roots root melodies because they think that calling it a melody makes it sound more interesting to the students, but I've never had a student complain about performing the chord roots. So we can model performing the chord roots to familiar melodies and teach our students to perform chord roots by rote. Not only is this great for harmonic skill development, but there's also evidence that exposure to and learning chord roots will equip students to improvise with a better sense of tonal cohesion. Denise Gilbeau, a former president of the Gordon Institute for Music Learning, did a really cool study where she took a bunch of elementary school classes and split them into two groups. Now, both groups learned all the same songs and did all the same activities. The only difference was that half the classes were exposed to chord roots to the songs they were learning, and the other half of the classes were not. So in the classes that were exposed to the chord roots, this included hearing the teacher perform the chord roots to some songs and learning to perform the chord roots themselves to some songs. Now, after an entire school year, Denise asked each child to vocally improvise an ending to a melody. And the students in the chord root group were able to vocally improvise in a way that made more tonal sense. I have a post on my blog, Research to Real Life, in which I summarized Denise's study, so I'll link to that post in the show notes if you'd like to read more about it. So those are some skills we can help our students develop to equip them to create and improvise with audiation. Over the next couple episodes, we're going to try some of these skills. In the next episode, I'm going to teach you a tune, we'll add the chord roots, and we'll start to play around a little with creating patterns in the context of the tune. Then in the next episode, we'll add verbal association and get into improvising over the harmonic progression of the tune. One of my favorite resources for practicing these kinds of skills is called Developing Musicianship Through Improvisation by Dick Grunow and Chris Azera. If you don't know Chris, he's got a wonderful TED Talk on improvisation, which I'll link to in the show notes as well. So, Developing Musicianship Through Improvisation is a book with recordings that takes you through a series of musicianship building skills with a set of tunes. You learn each tune along with its bass line, tonal patterns, rhythm patterns, and then you use those skills to start playing around with improvising over the tune. I love this resource so much that I'm thrilled to announce that it is our next giveaway from sponsor GIA Publications. If you'd like to enter to win a copy of Developing Musicianship Through Improvisation, you just need to do a quick little scavenger hunt. In honor of our brand new sponsor, the Gordon Institute for Music Learning, you can enter by going to the GIML website, www.giml.org, and click on Chapters. Then just send me an email at everydaymusicality@gmail.com and tell me the name of the GIML chapter that is closest to where you live. Also, you don't have to be a GIML member to win, but if you are a GIML member, mention that in your email and I'll give you a bonus entry. So that's it. If you want to enter to win a free copy of Developing Musicianship Through Improvisation, just email me the name of the GIML chapter closest to you. I'll be announcing the winner in the February 23rd episode, so you have until February 16th to enter. Also, don't forget I'm planning a Q&A episode in the new year, so if there's anything at all that you've wondered about MLT, or maybe something you've struggled with, like an LSA page that just never seems to work out, or a skill that's challenging for your students, just email me that question at everydaymusicality@gmail.com, and I'll answer those on a future episode. In the meantime, if you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, please get in touch. You can email me or send me a voice memo at everydaymusicality@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and let's keep musicking every day.